Thank you. And then once you get to your front, just say Muhammad wa Muhammad salawat. Just say that and do it at the podium because you'll do the marcia. So you can face this. You're good. Is that okay with you?
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا أقسم بهذا البلد وأنت حل بهذا البلد ووالد وما ولد لقد خلقنا الإنسان في كبد أيحسب أن لن يقدر عليه أحد يقول أهلكت مالا لبدا أيحسب أن لم يره أحد ألم نجعل له عينين ولسانا وشفتين وهديناه النجدين فلاقتحم العقبة وما أدراك ما العقبة فك الرقبة أو إطعام في يوم ذي مسقبة يتيما ذا متربة أو مسكينا ذا متربة ثم كان من الذين آمنوا وتواصوا بالصبر وتواصوا بالمرحمة أولئك أصحاب الميمنة والذين كفروا بآياتنا هم أصحاب المشأمة عليهم نار مؤصدة. صلوات.
صلوات. ہم مناتے ہیں غمیں خاتون جنت آج بھی. ہم مناتے ہیں غمیں خاتون جنت آج بھی. سن کے رو دیتا ہے دل، سن کے رو دیتا ہے دل ان کی مصیبت آج بھی. ہم مناتے ہیں غمیں خاتون جنت آج بھی، خاتون جنت آج بھی. دشمنوں نے ڈھا دیا تھا فاطمہ کا غم کا داغ، دشمنوں نے ڈھا دیا تھا فاطمہ کا غم کا داغ. اجڑی اجڑی اور بے سایہ ہے تربت آج بھی. ہم مناتے ہیں غمیں باپ کا شوہر کا غم اور 11 بیٹوں کا علم. باپ کا شوہر کا غم اور 11 بیٹوں کا علم. چین زہرا کو نہیں ہے زہر تربت آج بھی. ہم مناتے ہیں غمیں یاد ان کی جب بھی آئی آنکھ سے آنسو بہے. یاد ان کی جب بھی آئی آنکھ سے آنسو بہے. دل کو تڑپا دیتی ہے آواز غربت آج بھی. ہم مناتے ہیں غمیں باپ کے ماتم سے امت نے تمہیں روکا تھا کل باپ کے ماتم سے، امت نے تم کو روکا تھا کل، روکتی ہے ماتم سرور سے امت آج بھی، ہم مناتے ہیں غمِ خاتون جنت آج بھی، باقی ہے تسبیح زہرا سے نمازوں کا وقار، باقی ہے تسبیح زہرا سے نمازوں کا وقار، ساری دنیا پر ہے یہ روشن حقیقت آج بھی، ہم مناتے ہیں غمِ فاطمہ ہے فاطمہ شہزادی خلد کی، فاطمہ ہے فاطمہ ہے شہزادی خلد کی، تم جسے چاہو اسے مل جائے جنت آج بھی، ہم مناتے ہیں غمِ ذرائے ناچیز کو خورشید تم نے کر دیا، ذرائے ناچیز کو خورشید تم نے کر دیا، یہ کرم ہے آپ کا ملتی ہے شہرت آج بھی، ہم مناتے ہیں غمِ خاتون جنت آج بھی، سن کے رو دیتا ہے دل، سن کے رو دیتا ہے دل ان کی مصیبت آج بھی، ہم مناتے ہیں غمِ صلوات میں۔
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتحدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد، اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين، صاحب العصر والزمان خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان، ولعن الله أعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين، أما بعد فقد قال الله وقوله الحق، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، أو من كان ميتا فأحييناه وجعلنا له نورا يمشي به في الناس، صدق الله العلي العظيم، اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. First of all, let me express my humbleness and my gratitude and appreciation to the Edmonton Jamaat ISIA of Edmonton for inviting me, for including me in such important days. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He blesses that community, that He protects all of you from any virus of the soul and of the body, and that He accepts our efforts and our grief and our gham and our tears, inshaAllah. And again, once again, my condolences to all of you on the arrival of the Shahadat of Sayyidah Fatima Zahra Salamullah alayha. We have been now for the past 4 lectures spanning across a few days, looking at the concept of selflessness and empathy with the lifestyle of Sayyidah Fatima in mind, as a tribute, as a source of emulation for us. Now, last night we spoke a little bit about the power of listening. We talked about a number of things. In tonight's discussion, as a final discussion on these days of Fatimiyya, I wanted to touch upon a little bit of the concept of empathy. And more importantly is that, how can we cultivate that empathy inside of us? And what are some of those roadblocks that we have? Now, the first point that I'm going to make is that a narcissist can never be empathetic. It's very hard for somebody who is self-involved to have empathy for others. Even if they reach out to people, they send them some food, they do something, they kind of, they go to visit people, they always somehow make it about themselves. Okay. So a selfie or a post or a hashtag or I don't know, whatever the case may be, somehow or another they'll make sure that they themselves get it out that they went to go do this very righteous act for somebody else. When in reality, what we want to be able to accomplish is an act that is completely for that person and for Allah alone, and does not have a single hint of us and my respect inside of that. Not going to happen. So naturally, if we examine one of the major barriers in this path of empathy, it's the fact that there is self-love and self-conceit inside of us. We now have bought into today's individualism and bought into today's consumerism, and we are sitting there and we are coddling and we are building and we are maintaining the idol of the self inside of my heart. Any chance I get to propel myself, to promote myself, any chance I get, then, I want that. I want the respect. I want the accolades. I want the appreciation. And we don't realize that these types of things are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let him do what he does best. Why are we taking this into our own hands? If we truly want to be individuals who are respected in this world, then let's take the advice of the Imams. For example, we have a very beautiful hadith by Imam Sadiq, alayhi salatu wasalam. He says, "Ma min abdin kadhama al-ghaydan illa zada Allahu azza wa jal izzan fi dunya wal akhirah." That there's not a slave who does not retain or swallow their anger, except illa zadahu Allahu, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases their izzah fit dunya wal akhirah, in this world and the next. So if we are obsessed with our own self-respect and having others respect us, then why don't we follow the actual path the Ahlul Bayt has laid down for us? Why are we falling into this commercialization where now I become my own brand, I'm the billboard, I'm the marketing agent, and I'm the main character in the actual show? In the process now, we end up doing what? We end up polishing and developing this massive idol called the self, and we end up worshiping that idol our entire life. Everything and anything that I do, big or small, good or bad, somehow has to be promoted. Just to get a little bit of a talia, a little bit of applause, appreciation. And in a world like that, there is no room for empathy of others. And that's why, again, I said that in the very first speech, it's a lost art. We're too busy looking after ourselves. We're too busy worrying about ourselves. We actually believe that, look, if I look after somebody else, I'm going to take away time to look after myself. And they're both interconnected. My teacher would always give this example that, the earth has its own rotation on its own axis. And during its own individual rotation, the earth actually rotates around the sun. But it does not say that once I stop rotating, then I'll begin to rotate around the sun. No. In fact, part of the rotation of the earth on its own axis gives it enough strength to rotate around the sun. We're no different. While we are rotating around our own darkness and trying to figure out our own problems and now somehow climb ourselves out of our own darkness, what we don't realize is part of that healing process is to help others heal. Part of our own cleansing is to help someone else also cleanse. It's absolutely interconnected. If you are somebody riddled with anxiety, riddled with depression and stress, then part of your treatment, only part, I'm not saying it's a one blanket solution, part of the solution is to go out and reach out to others, but do it, please do it, without the fanfare, without the photo op, without the hashtags and selfies. Put the phone away. Just do it fi sabilillah, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You end up having self-worth. You end up feeling, you know what, if I can't help myself, I have enough worth to help others. The second huge barrier towards empathizing is that we just don't think we have anything to offer people. We don't believe that we can help anybody. Look at me. I'm a mess. I barely have my life in order. You want me to go and somehow pull someone else out of darkness. And slowly, bit by bit, we convince ourselves that I'm zero, I'm nothing, I'm worthless, I'm not a contributing member of society. And that trickles into our worship, into our ibadat, where we have convinced ourselves that God won't accept my tawbah, God won't accept my worship, I can't be of help to anybody else, I can barely keep my head afloat. It's a huge issue right now we have in our communities. But we don't realize that when we extend our hand and pull somebody out of their darkness, we actually in the process tell ourselves that, you know what, if nothing else, I helped that person do that. And we have to be able now to count our victories and celebrate those small moments of success. It's something we don't do. We think for a second that riyah, okay, this exaggeration of our piety also means that you can't celebrate those moments of success for yourself. It's not the case at all. Imam Muhammad Baqir, I'm paraphrasing, alayhi salatu wasalam, says that, you know, when you have moments where you are faced with sin and you don't sin, it's okay to stop and whisper to yourself, Alhamdulillah, and kind of like, you know, indirectly pat yourself on the back. That's not somebody who's showing off, someone who's full with full of himself, somebody who has ujb or riya. No, it's actually, you know what, you're stopping, you're acknowledging a blessing from Allah, that tawfiq from Allah. At the same time, you're giving yourself the courage and the resolve to move forward and telling yourself, you know what, I am worth something. And sometimes the fastest way, excuse me, the fastest way to do that sometimes is to reach out and to help others. To reach out, you know, and be there for somebody else. Like I said last night, approach up, you know, have the listen first approach, not a let's solve this my way approach. No. It doesn't work like that. And so a lot of what we are after, a lot of what we are trying to achieve here is this concept and the idea of finding our own self-worth by helping others. Now you might think even that is selfish, Syed. Even that is individualistic. But if it saves you from falling into the clutches of shaitan, then that's fine. That other version of individualism is the fact that why should I? And what can I gain out of helping others? This is an internal battle that sometimes is helped. You can help win that battle by what? By reaching out to others. By reaching out to others. A lot of us have this self-loathing concept. A lot of us have this anger inside of us when it comes to ourselves. And you know, we have to learn how to direct that. We have to know that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us is struggle. And part of that is for you to look at yourself as a part of a jama'ah, part of a communal effort. That sometimes what we're trying to achieve can't be done individually. That how much do we actually end up helping ourselves by helping out others? But if we're narcissistic, right? If we are full of ourselves, if we have that behavior where somehow now we make everything about ourselves, then how can we possibly think about anybody else? And part of the barriers of shaitan now, that shaitan now promised Allah from the front, from the back, from the right, from the left, is the fact that he teaches you and he actually convinces you that you're not worthy of anything. Because based on what, you've done in the past. Your closet is full, you have a horrible past, you made countless mistakes, and you think for a second that God wants you to help anybody else. No, stay where you are. You've done enough damage to yourself, now you're going to go out and you're going to destroy somebody else. No. These satanic thoughts are just that, they're satanic. God says, find yourself in the khidmat of others. Find your resolve, find your worth, find your courage in serving others. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. What makes you the best nation is that you help each other. You're there for each other. You pull them towards good. You avoid the evil inside them. Collectively, you believe in Allah. This is what is needed. Do you ever think for a second that what can I bring to the table? Sometimes the person just reaching out now does so much for that person. In the process now, you end up reviving that وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. One of the biggest things facing our individuals inside of our communities is this idea of feeling worthless, of feeling helpless, of thinking that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants everything to be grand, to be huge. You have no idea, Sayyid. You have no idea. My worship is minimal. There's a discussion in the book of Adab al-Salat of Imam Khomeini's, and I don't have the chapter down packed, but in the first discourse of the book, he talks about Adab Qalbiyya instead of Adab al-Salat. That's the second discourse in the book. Part one, he talks about those situations or those etiquettes of the heart, those things that we need to even enter the realm of Salat. And in there, he talks about many, many things. And this is one of the most beautiful discussions I've come across. In there, he talks about the fact that worship is to be done on a capacity based. Okay? And he quotes a hadith that I found to be astonishing. For example, the Prophet of Allah is telling Imam Ali, slowly enter the deen. Meaning, don't rush things when it comes to yourself. Otherwise, your nafs might have this hatred towards the worship of Allah. Slowly but surely build up on that worship. But it's not an all or nothing approach. It's not go big or go home approach at all when it comes to worship. It's monotonous. It's meticulous. It's inch by inch. It's a journey. You're a salik. It's a suluk. You're the musafir. You're on a safar. You're a journey. You're a journeyman. You're a traveler. You're on a journey. That journey never stops. And in that chapter, he talks about the fact that sometimes we put too much of a burden on ourselves. Now, I thought long and hard about this speech, because I don't want anyone to think that, Syed Asad is giving me a ticket to kind of take it easy and be spiritually lazy. No, of course not. That's not what I'm saying at all. No way would I say that. But what I am saying is that the amount of pressure that we put on ourselves when it comes to worship, or the wrong image we have of God. Remember, if I am to summarize what Shaitan is trying to do, all of his tactics into one, I would summarize it by this: Shaitan is doing his level best to infiltrate the system inside of you, inside of me, and change my image of God inside of me. That's all he wants to do. If I can somehow now convince this guy that God is very tough to please, that God doesn't forgive easily, that God only accepts perfect worship, that God only listens to the ma'asumeen in terms of du'as, that God doesn't want to busy himself with your meaningless du'as and requests. If I can do that, Shaitan will say, then I've that's it. I've won. Because now, no matter how much they go through the motions, these servants of God, quote unquote, will not be individuals who will actually truly invest in that worship. But in this discussion of Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayh, he says that, look, you do what is best for you. You worship Allah to the best of your ability. Allah will never be, this is a hadith by the Prophet, you worship Allah to the best of your ability. Allah will never be tired of your worship unless you're tired of worshiping Him. If I was to take a survey right now of everyone right now listening to you and ask you guys, do you think that God will accept your worship and you'll have a good akhirat? I don't think the majority of you will say yes. I think the majority will say no, it's pretty bleak, it's pretty kind of, surface level, it's, I don't think God will accept it. And maybe that comes from a humble area, maybe. But some of you, it comes from a hopeless area. And the second major sin, Ayatollah Dasgheb Shirazi has a book called Gunahi Kabira, the 50 greatest sins. Okay, it's in English, it's online. He says the second sin after shirk, the second sin is hopelessness in God. Before murder, before everything else, before alcohol, before adultery, before all of that, the biggest sin, he says now mind you, this is his analysis, is hopelessness. Where would we be if we didn't have the hope in Allah? The dua that we have, oh Allah, look at me or accept me through the eyes of your mercy, not the eyes of your justice. Where would we be without that? We don't want to help people because we don't think we can help people. We don't want to reach out because we have nothing. We think we have nothing to offer. We don't want to take part in this group or that team or this meeting because really, what am I going to say? People approach you, say, you know what? Can you give a short little lecture on this? Really, what could I? And just downplaying, because we've been told now since we were young that piety equals zero. Piety equals you crushing yourself. Don't sit there and, announce your accomplishments. Don't sit there and for a moment, celebrate your successes. Don't for a moment even, mention your achievements. All of that now is 0, 0, 0. The more you delve into hopelessness, the more you delve into this idea of self-defeat, the more pious you are. Not the case at all. Nothing at all. I'm sorry. Imam Ali has a beautiful discussion on self-worth. But sometimes we incorrectly believe that the only avenue of self-worth is my individual accomplishments, be it at my work or my school or I don't know, whatever the case may be. But we don't realize that sometimes communal accomplishments that I am part of also adds to my self-worth. But we have to get there, guys. We have to stop and think for a moment. And not downplay ourselves and not think for a moment that God now just wants this beautiful masterpiece, flawless worship. No, Imam Khomeini says, it's a hadith now, he quotes a hadith. Imam Sadiq now, he quotes a hadith in the chapter. Imam Sadiq says that when I was younger, I would worship Allah to the point where my father, Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam, would say that you don't need to do all of this for God. Because when Allah makes somebody your beloved, He accepts very little from you. The little that you give is enough, provided it is done in a very sincere package. Again, I'm not telling you to do very little amount of worship. I'm saying that we don't need to sit there and convince ourselves that it's all about the quantity of worship. No. I read 50 verses a day. Good for you, but I read them like it was punishment, like it was torture. He doesn't want that. He wants 4 verses from you, read because you want to, as opposed to 50 that you did, because it's a gun to your head. He wants namaz-e-shab to be something out of your hub, out of your love. The word mustahab actually comes from hub. It should be done out of love. But we've made something that should be done out of love, out of an obligation. In the process now, we haven't gotten it right. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala includes you as His beloved, then He expects and accepts very little from you. The month of Rajab now, it's coming now. In what, next month is month of Rajab? Every single day after every single wajib salat, there is a dua, right? In there we say what? We say, يا من رجوه لكل خير وآمن سخط عند كل شر يا من يؤتي الكثير بالقليل. Oh, to the one, we call to the one who gives a lot in exchange for a little. A lot for exchanging of a little. Provided that little is sincere. You know, the Prophet would pray salats on his tippy toes to maximize the amount of effort. And Allah would say, you don't need to do that. That's not why I made this worship for you. It shouldn't be to the point where your feet would swell. Now, how do I know that I'm accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That's the question. Fine, Syed Asad, you told me that when Allah makes somebody his beloved, or yeah, he accepts very little. How do I know that I'm God's beloved? And that's where I want us to change the mentality of God inside of us. In kuntum tuhibbun Allah fattabi'uni yuhbibkum Allah. Allah says, look, to the Holy Prophet, if they claim to love me, tell them to follow you, Ya Rasulullah. If they follow you, yuhbibkum Allah, then I become their beloved. So we do our best to follow the Sira of the Holy Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt to the best of our ability. To the best of our ability. There are some people who will spend their entire life trying to wake up for Fajr. That's fine. I'm not saying don't shoot for the stars. Always look to achieve more, but do it incrementally. Do it step by step, bit by bit. We've made God to be a daunting task for us. In the process now, we've set up ourselves for failure when it comes to Allah. Our self-worth is gone, our taqwa is gone, our self-love is gone, and then because we have all of that, we're rid of drowning in it. We don't see how could I possibly add anything to this person's life. I know they're drowning, Maulana. I know they're in need, but I can't help them. What am I going to do? What could I possibly say? Look at me. I'm a hot mess myself. All that stems from an incorrect version of God. The biggest barrier why we don't say a word sometimes is because we don't think we have anything to offer. Which is, a reflection of how we see ourselves. Either we are individuals who are excessive when it comes to ourselves, so we are a narcissist, which of course blocks us from serving others. Or we are somebody who, is deficient, and we think that we are zero, nothing. I can't add anything to humanity. Both of them are wrong. Islam is such a balanced religion, guys. It's incredible. In this talk on emotion, for example, okay, in the world of akhlaq, okay, in the world of akhlaq, there is a discussion on the various powers and emotions inside of the human being. Right? We have anger, we have desire, we have creativity, we have the intellect. These four powers are very powerful. These four departments are very powerful. Okay? They have the capability and the potential to overtake our entire system. So when we are angry, for example, we are just raging mad. Think about the fact that how many things inside of you lose control of. From your tongue to, God forbid, your hands, to your mindset, to God, all of that is lost. All at the whim of the anger inside of you. When we are filled with desire, we want this, we desire this. Now imagine if we go to fulfill that desire, nothing else matters. Everything else we're blind to. That desire is that strong. Does Islam say turn that tap off? Does Islam say you can't feel anger or desire? No. Islam says those are real emotions, and they're natural emotions, and they exist inside of you. But the kamal and the perfection is to reach that balance for every single emotion. Please follow me very carefully. Every one of these majorly strong emotions has a balance inside of it, has an intermediate level to it. So for example, the example I gave, I just read a majlis about an hour ago on anger. I'll give you the example from that majlis. In anger, all of us get angry, right? Islam doesn't say you can't get angry. No. Islam says the expression of anger is different, right? The existence is there. We all get angry. Not me, no, even you, brother. Everyone gets angry. It's how you express that anger, where Islam now has guidelines. Islam says that it does not accept a deficient amount of anger, where now you become a coward. Don't defend your family. Don't defend your faith. Don't defend injustice. You're quiet. No, thank you. Rock the boat. That's a cowardice that Islam doesn't accept. Islam doesn't accept a sufficient or a excessive amount of anger, where now we become an animal, yelling and screaming and swearing and, to our family, to our loved ones, to our community members. No. Islam wants us to reach a level where we are moderate inside of our anger. From that moderate level of anger, the quality of courage is extracted. Courage of an individual comes from anger. I'll give you another example. Okay, desire. Desire has to the point where there is a deficient amount of desire inside of us. We don't want anything. We become someone who's lazy. We become somebody who's not driven, right? Nothing pushes us. That's also a problem. Islam doesn't say for us to be lazy. At the same time, Islam says do not be somebody who is excessive in your desire. Everything you want, you have to have. You've made your nafs your God. That's a problem. But that balance and that medium level of desire is very important. That's where modesty comes in. So look, these on the outward, these very dangerous emotions like anger and desire actually can produce courage and modesty, very respectful qualities, provided we find the medium. And there are ways to do that outside of my topic. We're no different. Sometimes when we look at ourselves, we have a deficient way of looking at ourselves, where I'm nothing, I'm zero, I'm zero, I'm zero. Or it is excessive, where I'm everything. I'm God's gift to this and God's gift without me, and I become a narcissist. There is a middle path that we have to accept. That Islam talks about that middle path. That yes, understand that you are the greatest creation of God. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We have honored the human being. At the same time, you are an abd of Allah. أَنْتُمْ فُقَرَاءُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. For Allah, you are a faqir. You're always in need. So balance that out now. I want to feel proud at the fact that I'm a servant of God. Oh, it's such a difficult balance, right? When Imam Ali says that my highest level of fakhr and pride is that I am your abd of Allah. I am your abd, Allah. Of all the things that Ali could be proud of, from Badr to Uhud to Khandaq to Khaybar to Ghadir, he says none of that matters. The fact that I chose you, God, is what matters to me. When we are able to find now what helps us find that balanced approach, serving others, helping out others, being there for others, being empathetic towards others, realizing that yes, I have a lot to give. At the same time though, and by the way, and this is from my personal experience, when I actually approach somebody who's going through the exact same thing that I'm going through, and I give them advice, I listen to them, it actually helps me with my own journey. I ask myself, what advice would you give this person if they approach you with the problem you're having? And I think to myself, what am I doing? Why can't I do this? So it is amazing how selflessness has so many other effects to it. Helping somebody out, reaching out to somebody has many internal benefits. A lot of you are suffering, quietly suffering. But the first thing that you have to recognize is that there is a wound to heal. It's like somebody who is stabbed in the back with a knife, and you're coming as a doctor and saying, okay, let's go ahead and patch you up. Okay, fine. The first thing you have to do is take the knife out of the back. Let's first look at the knife in the back. If you're telling me as my doctor, I don't see a knife in your back, you're not going to heal my wound. If you don't acknowledge that wound, it's not going to heal. A lot of you, myself included, we have a lot of wounds inside of us that might date back to our childhood, the way our parents spoke to us, being bullied at school, for example, my body issues, the way I look, for example. All of that needs to be addressed for me to reach that medium level where I am a proud servant of God. Proud servant of God. That I pride myself in being God's servant, and I show that subservience by putting my head and my nose and rubbing it in dirt. Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamdih. And that balance is very difficult. That's why Imam Sajjad says that whenever anybody praises me on the outside, Allah, I beg you to lower me that much more on the inside. What a beautiful, beautiful statement. Finding that balance is so very important. And that can be achieved. One of the ways is selflessness, empathy, being there for others, sitting in their darkness, asking them what's wrong, listening to what they're, and truly, like I said last time, truly being good listeners. Remember the hadith by the Holy Prophet. Insat, istima', hifz, amalun bih, nashr. Silence, listening, retention, practice, spreading that knowledge. Without it, it's very, very difficult. These are the things that we get from the treasures of the Ahlul Bayt. These are the things that are left behind as a legacy by the Ahlul Bayt. They force us to have these conversations. I tell you, one of the biggest losses that I think this pandemic now, one of the biggest groups that have suffered the loss in this pandemic, I think, are the Shias. We, I don't know how it is in Edmonton, but in my center we have maybe close to 200 programs a year. You combine the month of Ramadan, you combine Muharram and Safar, you combine Shab al-Jum'ah, you combine 12 imams birth, 11 imams shahadat, you combine sometimes not one day but 3-4 days of that one imam and that one ma'soom, and then of course you have the soya majlises, and then you have the other programs, you have the jashans, you have the celebrations, all of that, one by one, bit by bit. All of that was made for healing, right? All of this was our anxiety pill. A lot of it was for us to meet and greet people, for us to know each other, for us to now see the pain that the other one is feeling. All that is lost right now. We're approaching a year in this pandemic. And so these programs that we have, and I have the utmost respect for those communities, like the Edmonton one, that now has not allowed their communities to skip a beat. They've learned the software. They figured out how to live stream on their YouTube channel. They've arranged for the ulama. They've asked for the lectures. They want the live. But the idea of not having this isn't an option. Fine, we'll be creative in the way that we present it, but the dhikr has to remain. This dhikr is our salvation, believe me. This is what gives us everything from our own help to the help of others. Without it, I don't know where we would be. I tell you, without the imams, without these programs, I fear where we would be as a nation. Especially if we extract the right lessons from these moments and from these dates. Sayyidah Fatima served her father like no other. Sayyidah Fatima stood beside her husband like no other. Sayyidah Fatima, raised, the only mother in this universe to be given ma'soom children, and she returned those kids back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the same level of isma. The only mother in this universe to do that. It's not easy. And all in a very, very young age. So yes, there's anger involved. There's grief involved. These are not easy nights for us. This is our mother we're talking about. And the way that she was martyred, under what circumstances. If a loved one that you had, if your own mother, God forbid, went through what she went through, we would never forget that grief and that pain. And yes, it would invoke anger every single time we think about it, especially if those people weren't brought to proper justice just yet. But think about our Imam tonight. Think about Imam Zamana tonight. Think about what state he's in tonight. Imam Ali now has buried his wife, Sayyidah Fatima. How he did it, I don't know. A woman like that, with that level, should not have a handful of people at her janazah, at her mayyat, at her funeral. There should not be only a handful of people reciting Salatul Mayyat. A person of importance in our community passes away and everyone shows up. The Jamaat of Salat al-Mayt is out the door. And someone like Fatima al-Zahra has only a handful of people. That alone is enough to crush us. Imam Ali buries his wife. And last night I read everything about the Shahadat. But tonight, just one moment in history. The next day, when news spread in all of Medina that Sayyidah Fatima had passed away and was buried in the middle of the night without anyone even knowing, there was chaos, uproar. How could it be that we weren't there? We didn't pay our last respects, our regards. We weren't shamil. We didn't do shirkat. We weren't there present inside the funeral rites. And it got to the point where one person actually, if not a group of people, actually suggested that we dig up the body of Sayyidah Fatima. Well, the utmost respect now, hold a grand funeral for her and bury the body again. This suggestion got back to Amir al-Mu'mineen. That Ali that was still grieving, that Ali that was still upset, that Ali that was angry. And one point I want to make here with all of you, Imam Ali Zulfiqar, while the Prophet was alive, was very busy in Medina. 80 plus wars, he was front and center on the majority of them. The Zulfiqar was very busy. But the Zulfiqar was that much quiet after the death of the Holy Prophet. For 23 years, 3 Khulafa, the Zulfiqar was quiet. It became again busy during his Khilaf al-Zahiri with 3 civil wars. But there came one moment where Ali took out his Zulfiqar after the Holy Prophet death, just before his Khilaf al-Zahiri. That one moment now where that suggestion to dig up the body of Fatima went to Ali, he pulled out his Zulfiqar, the Jalal of Hadar Karar. He announces, anybody who touches the grave of my wife, I will make you part of the dirt that you stand on. Ali was shook, Ali was hit hard. Imam Ali's now Jalal was shown. And the only thing I would say to you, Mawla, tonight, I know this night is so difficult for you, but the mere thought of any disrespect to the body of your wife, and this much Jalal comes out where the Zulfiqar now makes a presence. Where were you in Karbala? If only you were in Karbala, Mawla, when that beheaded body of your son Hussein, the trampled body of your son Hussein, the stripped body of your son Hussein, when Umar bin Saad now wasn't satisfied with killing Hussein, with stripping Hussein, 10 different horses now were lined up, 5 on one side, 5 on the other. Umar bin Saad's command now, 5 from the right go to the left, 5 from the left go to the right. Ekash Mawla Ali, if only you were there with your Zulfiqar to stop the disrespect of your son Hussein. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept this qaleel ibadat, inshaAllah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to give us that tawfiq and that inspiration to tread the path of Fatima al-Zahra, inshaAllah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
फातिमा का भरे मदीने में गम बटाने कोई नहीं आया. फातिमा का भरे मदीने में गम बटाने कोई नहीं आया. घर जलाने तो कलमा गो आए, दर बुझाने कोई नहीं आया. फातिमा का भरे मदीने में गम बटाने कोई नहीं आया. क्या वो इस्लाम का ही मरकज़ था, क्या मदीना था वो मोहम्मद का, کیا وہ اسلام کا ہی مرکز تھا؟ کیا مدینہ تھا وہ محمد کا؟ لگ رہے تھے جہاں پہ زہرا کے تازیانے کوئی نہیں آیا، فاطمہ کا بھرے مدینے میں غم بٹانے کوئی نہیں آیا۔ رسیاں تھی علی کی گردن میں اور بازار سے گزرتے تھے، رسیاں تھی علی کی گردن میں اور بازار سے گزرتے تھے، سب تماشائی بن کے تکتے رہے اور چھڑانے کوئی نہیں آیا، فاطمہ کا بھرے مدینے میں غم بٹانے کوئی نہیں آیا۔ گھر جلا قتل ہو گئے محسن، پسلیاں سیدہ کی ٹوٹ گئی، رسیاں گھر جلا قتل ہو گئے محسن، پسلیاں سیدہ کی ٹوٹ گئی۔ پھر بھی کہتے ہو تم کہ زہرا پر ظلم ڈھانے کوئی نہیں آیا، فاطمہ کا بھرے مدینے میں غم نے کوئی نہیں آیا۔ خود ہی چننے لگی نبی زادی بکری تحریر اپنے بابا کی، خود ہی چننے لگی نبی زادی بکری تحریر اپنے بابا کی، مصطفیٰ کی سند کے ٹکڑوں کو جب اٹھانے کوئی نہیں آیا، فاطمہ کا بھرے مدینے میں غم بٹانے ہی نہیں آیا۔ ہر ستم فاطمہ پہ ڈھایا گیا، جلتا دروازہ بھی گرایا گیا، ہر ستم فاطمہ پہ ڈھایا گیا، چلتا دروازہ بھی گرایا گیا۔ اپنے مہدی کو دی صدا اس نے جب بچانے کوئی نہیں آیا، فاطمہ کا بھرے مدینے میں غم بٹانے کوئی نہیں آیا۔ 8 شوال کو ہوئی اکبر، پھر شہادت نبی کی بیٹی کی، 8 شوال کو ہوئی اکبر، پھر شہادت نبی کی بیٹی کی، گر رہا تھا مزار بی بی کا پر بچانے کوئی نہیں آیا، فاطمہ کا بھرے مدینے میں غم بٹانے کوئی نہیں آیا۔ یا حسین
یا حسین، یا حسین، اٹھا کوئی جنازہ پھر سیدہ کے گھر سے، حسرت برس رہی ہے ایک ایک بام و در سے، اٹھا کوئی جنازہ پھر سیدہ کے گھر سے، اٹھا کوئی جنازہ پھر سیدہ کے گھر سے، یہ کس کو رو رہی ہے زینب تڑپ تڑپ کر، یہ کس کو رو رہی ہے زینب تڑپ تڑپ کر، یہ کس کو رو رہی ہے زینب تڑپ تڑپ کر، جنت میں سیدہ نے چادر گھیرا دی سر سے، اٹھا کوئی جنازہ پھر سیدہ کے گھر سے، اٹھا کوئی جنازہ پھر سیدہ کے گھر سے، جس نے خدا کے گھر کو بخشی تھی آ کے زینت، جس نے خدا کے گھر کو بخشی تھی آ کے زینت، جس نے خدا کے گھر کو بخشی تھی آ کے زینت، وہ آج ہو رہا ہے رخصت خدا کے گھر سے، اٹھا کوئی جنازہ پھر سیدہ کے گھر سے، اٹھا کوئی جنازہ۔ زینب کے بازوؤں کو شبیر چومتے ہیں، زینب کے بازوؤں کو شبیر چومتے ہیں، زینب کے بازوؤں کو شبیر چومتے، کیا جانیے علی نے کیا کہہ دیا پسر سے، اٹھا کوئی جنازہ پھر سیدہ کے گھر سے، اٹھا پھر سیدہ کے گھر سے، قاتل کو اپنے ٹھنڈا شربت پلانے والا، قاتل کو اپنے ٹھنڈا شربت پلانے والا، قاتل کو اپنے ٹھنڈا شربت پلانے والا، بے چین ہو رہے ہیں خود کے اثر سے، اٹھا کوئی جنازہ پھر سیدہ کے گھر سے، یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین، محمد و آل محمد صلوات محمد و آل محمد، توجہ زیارت۔ السلام علیکہ یا رسول اللہ یا حبیب اللہ یا نبی اللہ، السلام علیکہ یا امیر المؤمنین یا علی بن ابی طالب یا مرتضی، السلام علیکہ یا فاطمہ بنت رسول اللہ قرۃ عین رسول یا سیدۃ نساء العالمین، السلام علیکہ یا خدیجۃ الکبری ام المؤمنین، السلام علیکہ یا حسن مجتبی، السلام علیکہ یا حسین شہید کربلا سید شباب اہل جنہ، السلام علیکہ یا علی بن الحسین سجاد زین العابدین، السلام علیکہ یا اولاد الحسین و اصحاب الحسین، السلام عليك يا شهداء كربلاء وأسيران كربلاء. السلام عليك يا سيدة زينب. السلام عليك يا غازي عباس جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا محمد الباقر. السلام عليك يا جعفر الصادق. السلام عليك يا موسى الكاذب. السلام عليك يا علي رضاه. السلام عليك يا محمد التقي. السلام عليك يا علي نقي. السلام عليك يا حسن العسكري. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان الأمان والأمان والأمان. السلام عليك يا مام الإنس والجان. السلام عليك يا كأبة الإيمان أجله تعالى فرجك وسحن الله مخرجك وزهورك. السلام عليك يا أهل بيت نبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لي وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائي في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على